Today we're going to talk about clothes, clothing material, and it's a topic that I have never covered here on this channel. I've been recording vlogs on here for more than 10 years. I worked in the clothing industry in my late teens from the age of about 17 to 20. And the clothing store, they targeted an age range for maybe about 25 to 40 years old women. And I accumulated quite a nice wardrobe. It was like mandatory to buy clothes every season, and you get a discount and all of that. And while I was studying at university, it was great to have a good wardrobe, especially with lots of warm clothes and clothes that were had the right cut, for me, and they were made of a reasonable quality, I would say. So yeah, I loved going to uni with all these really pretty well made clothes. They weren't cheap clothes that you would get from very cheap stores, nor were they high end items either. So yeah, there was a bit of a joke. I was studying law and accounting and whatnot. It sounds like a side tangent, but we'll get there. And there was always a joke that the law students always dress the best and at university, and so I kind of fitted into that stereotype in a certain way. I definitely wasn't superficial in that regard, but I did like dressing well. And fast forward to now, and I still have an interest in clothing, in outfits, in pairing items together. And nowadays my had much more of a mindset shift in regards to obviously upcycling as much as possible. And the topic we're going to talk about today is natural fibres, moving into that space and accumulating, if that's the word, or shall I say transitioning the wardrobe from less synthetics to more of natural fibres. And as we know, pretty much all clothing that is made, it does go through a process. Doesn't matter whether it's organic cotton or it's nylon, it does all go through a process. And there are always going to be outputs or some waste from making clothing. That's the nature of the industry at this moment in time. Even if you want to make your own clothing, there's still a very strenuous process. There's still usually some sort of we might not call it chemical, but like chemicals that are involved. There's a lot of processing involved to get the clothing to, a wearable state. And when you're looking at trying to take better care of yourself, clothing is almost a no-brainer. You want to move into clothing that is got a lot less chemicals in it. It takes a lot less processing, and there's a lot less waste and detriment to the people that are making it and the surrounding environment of where the clothes are made as well. So when you're looking at, natural fibres, there's a whole range of them out there now, and it's not like this is anything new. A lot of our ancestors made clothes from natural fibres. For me personally, I have much more an interest in natural fibres that are made from plant matter. That's what I resonate with. Also, because I live a vegan lifestyle, I'm not so interested in animals and wearing them. I also live in a rather warm climate, so there's not a need to be wearing things like wool or animal skin, things like that either. So when we're looking at the natural fibres made out of plants, we're looking at things like cotton, linen, hemp, coir, which is like made from coconuts, jute, kapok, and there's many, many, many others. What I'm wearing today is a linen cotton mix. It's like a crop top that I've got on, and then I've got like a high-waisted pair of loose linen shorts on as well. So I love wearing that kind of fiber. I think linen is kind of like I'm going through a linen phase at the moment. It's kind of like my favorite natural fiber material. It's like also, some of these natural fibers are a lot easier to dye as well. This here is actually a French linen dress that's been dyed by a local artist. She uses a lot of Australian native plants to dye the clothes. So I bought this one that was a French linen. And so you can see she's also done lots of other sort of patterns with it as well. She gets quite creative, uses minerals in the dyeing as well. So she's got like old car parts on the property that she lives on. So this is where you get some of the sort of rust color. There's like some wire happening there. So yeah, if you're into dyeing clothes, you often find that the natural fibers can gravitate better towards those natural fibers. Now, why is it so important to take good care of your skin and the clothes? Your clothes are sitting on your skin. Well, as many of you know, your skin is the biggest organ in the body. It's the biggest area in which you absorb things. So for many of us, we're wearing clothes every day on a regular basis, and so we are absorbing everything that's gone into making these clothes, right? And if you're wearing a lot of synthetic, for some people, especially when they have sensitive skin, they'll often find they get more rashes. There's a lot more of a buildup of sweat. There's bacterial growth and just general skin irritation from wearing a lot of synthetic fiber clothes. And especially if you like to wear quite close-fitting clothes, when you're in warm climates, it does tend to be beneficial to wear clothing that's a lot more looser, a lot more breathable. But when you are in colder climates, you're often wanting to wear clothes quite close to the skin, because that can help create more warmth, right? And so if you're wearing quite synthetic fibers very close to your skin, then you're not necessarily doing your skin the best favor that you can. So there's also, we can have a look at the science, and they can measure the frequency, which is just basically the measurement of how fast something vibrates on the clothing as well. And you'll often find a lot of the synthetic clothing, the frequency in which it vibrates is a lot lower than, say, something like linen. Linen's within the thousands. So, there's a scale on those sorts of things there. People who often work in the realms of the etherical, the spiritual, faith, whatever terminology you like to use there, they will often talk about how wearing loose-fitting natural fiber clothes is a lot better for them when they are engaging in their practices of faith and good health as well. So we're talking about things like yoga, meditation, gardening, all these sorts of things that often people will engage in to better their health in ways beyond just the physical realm as well. So for some people, when they say that they're meditating and they're wearing a lot of synthetic clothing, they'll notice a difference to when they switch to natural fiber clothing. They're able to get a clearer connection with the source of that which they desire to connect to, and therefore. So you may also find that many of the natural fibers are often more healthier for the environment. This is not, there's still going to be, so like I said earlier, some detriment to making clothes in general. But when we're in the business of manufacturing clothes, you often find that the natural fiber clothing, when we're talking about plants here, there's usually less toxins created and less toxins used to create such clothing as well, which obviously means it's going to be cleaner airways, waterways, cleaner soil. It's better for the humans and also animals and plants in that environment of where it's being made. And then another thing that you may notice is that the natural fiber clothing tends to age more beautifully. There's something about the clothing, it's almost like it seems to get softer with more use. So if you take good care of it, it's really interesting. Like, it does tend to last longer. It does tend to look better over time. It can be repaired and upcycled usually a lot easier. And it doesn't trap body odor the same way that synthetic fibres tend to as well. So for some people, if they're used to wearing a lot of synthetic fibres all the time, and if you ever smell one of their old t-shirts, especially in the underarm area, you often notice that there is quite a predominant body odor emanating from there. And, you know, depending on what the person eats, it's going to depend on how smelly that smell is. And, you know, I'm sure some of you are aware there's a lot of science now showing that there's an interesting connection between smell, body odor, and how people can pick partners as well. So, yeah, you don't really want to be wearing synthetic clothing that's trapping your body odor, and especially if you've got really stinky body odor. Yeah, I don't know. You may still attract a partner anyway, because that'll be where you're at. Complete side tangent. But yeah, we're talking about body odor. And then also, when you have an interest in natural fibres and finding clothes either that are made through ethical sources, or you're looking at, you know, maybe you're on online stores that sell secondhand clothes, you go to charity shops, you go to shops in general that sell secondhand items, and you start to be a lot more mindful about where has this come from? What kind of process does it go through? You know, I am aware that if you want to buy like brand new clothing that's made out of natural fibres, and if it's also made ethically, it is going to be more expensive, because people are getting paid more of a living wage to make such items. And, you know, whether it's made in India or Bolivia or another country, you know, of course, each country has its own sort of price of living, if we can put it that way. But whether you still get it from a place that, you know, maybe we would consider the price of living as being a lot cheaper, you can still pay a little bit more. And then at least you know, if they've done their proper due diligence, you know, and you're having a look online or wherever you're getting your resource of this information from, just paying a little bit more, and they are actually paying their staff better wages. That too in itself is, it can only really be a beneficial thing. You know, maybe you can't afford to buy natural fiber clothes that are made in the country that you live in, but if you make a choice to buy it in another country overseas, you're just going for what the cheapest is that you can find. Usually the ethics of everything else of how it's being made is not usually of a high standard. So, you know, and if you can't afford to buy brand new natural fiber clothing, then having a look at other avenues of how you can obtain that is not going to cost you as much. And also, if you're addicted to shopping, or you're a bit of a hoarder, or you've just generally got a problem with collecting too many material items, then it could also be a really good opportunity for you to actually have a look at, maybe I need to sell a whole lot of the things that I've got in my wardrobe. And maybe the money that I obtain from such things, I can then use it to buy less items but of higher quality, and that are going to last longer, and they're not going to trap body odor, and they're going to age really beautifully. So yeah, this video was much longer than I anticipated. It wasn't super like logic, left brain, boom, 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 boom. Hey, I'm not always going to be that way. So if you've got any questions about natural fiber clothing, you're welcome to leave that in the comment section below. If you have particular brands, or it could even be local artists that you know that make clothes and you want to support them, you want people to know about their kind of work, or maybe you are one of those yourself, welcome to leave in the comment section Just letting people know, like, hey, I upcycle clothes that have a lot of natural fibres in them, or hey, I buy fabric that's natural fibre and then I make things with it, or hey, I dye clothes that have been used and upcycled and completely restyled in a new way, whatever. Let people know. And I'll see you in the next vlog.